Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Emma, and as always, I'm joined by the wonderful Jake. Jake, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Emma. Thanks for asking. Although, I'll be honest, I almost didn't make it here on time today. I was running around like a headless chicken this morning. You know that feeling?
Oh, absolutely. Running around like a headless chicken, I love that expression. It means you're so busy and disorganized that you're just moving from one thing to another without really getting anything done, right?
Exactly. And ironically, today we're talking about managing your time, so I probably should have had my morning a little more together.
Right. A little ironic. But honestly, I think that makes you the perfect person to talk about this topic because most of us really struggle with it. So, Jake, let's just dive straight in. When you hear the phrase time management, what comes to mind?
Honestly, my first thought is guilt. Like, I immediately think about all the times I've wasted time scrolling through my phone or watching one more episode of something when I really should have been working.
Oh, that's such a relatable answer. And I think that's actually a really important starting point. The fact that most people connect time management with this sense of failure or guilt, rather than seeing it as a skill they can actually learn and get better at.
Exactly. And that's a big shift in perspective, a change in the way you look at something. Time management isn't a personality trait you're born with. It's genuinely something you can develop over time, like learning to cook or learning a language.
I like that comparison. And speaking of developing skills, how did you personally start getting better at managing your time? Was there a moment where something just clicked for you?
Yeah, actually there was. A few years ago, I had this absolutely chaotic week where I had 3 deadlines, a family commitment, and I forgot a friend's birthday dinner. I just completely dropped the ball, meaning I failed to do something important. And I remember thinking, okay, something has to change.
Dropping the ball is such a good phrase for that. So what did you actually change after that week?
Well, the first thing I did was start writing everything down, and I mean everything. I stopped trusting my memory and started trusting a system. I got a simple planner, nothing fancy, and I began putting tasks, appointments, meetings, even social events, all in one place.
That sounds so simple, but it's genuinely effective. There's actually a lot of research behind this idea that our brains aren't meant to be storage systems. We're not computers. When we try to hold too many things in our heads, we get overwhelmed, and our performance actually drops.
Right, and I think that's something a lot of people underestimate. They think, oh, I'll remember it, and then they don't. Or they remember it at 2 in the morning, and then they can't sleep.
Oh, the 2 a.m. panic remembering. That is so real. Okay, so writing things down, that's your first piece of advice. What else helped you?
The second big thing for me was learning to prioritize. And I mean really prioritize, not just make a long list and work through it from top to bottom. There's this really well-known idea called the Eisenhower matrix. Have you come across it?
I've heard of it, yeah, but I'd love for you to explain it because I think a lot of our listeners might not be familiar with it.
Sure. So the basic idea is that you divide your tasks into 4 categories. You ask yourself 2 questions. Is this task urgent, and is it important? Urgent means it needs to be done soon. Important means it has a significant impact on your goals. And depending on your answers, you place the task in one of 4 boxes.
Okay, so walk us through those 4 boxes.
So the first box is tasks that are both urgent and important. Those you do immediately. No delay, no procrastination. The second box is things that are important but not urgent. These are actually the most valuable tasks. Things like long-term planning, learning new skills, building relationships. You schedule time for these.
And I imagine that second box is where a lot of people fall short, because important but not urgent things are easy to keep pushing off.
Exactly. They keep getting bumped, pushed to later, because they're not screaming for your attention. The third box is urgent but not important. These are things like certain emails, some meetings, requests from other people. The advice is to delegate these if you can, meaning give them to someone else to handle.
And the fourth?
Not urgent and not important. Those are distractions. Social media rabbit holes, unnecessary browsing, things that just eat your time without giving anything back. And the advice is simply to eliminate them, or at least limit them heavily.
I love this framework. A framework, by the way, is basically a system or structure for thinking about something. And what I love about this one is that it forces you to be honest with yourself about what actually matters.
Yeah, because the hard truth is, and this might be a little uncomfortable for some people, a lot of what feels urgent actually isn't. We just treat it like it is.
That's such a good point. There's this phenomenon where we confuse being busy with being productive. Like, someone can be completely slammed, totally overwhelmed with things to do, and still not be moving forward on anything that actually counts.
Totally. I used to be that person. My calendar was full, my to-do list was a mile long, and at the end of the week, I'd look back and think, what did I actually accomplish? And the answer was, not much.
The full calendar with zero progress feeling. Okay, so let's talk about the other side of this, the actual practical habits. Because I think knowing about a matrix is great, but habits are where real change happens. What are some daily habits that have genuinely helped you?
Great question. The one habit I'd say transformed my mornings, and by extension my whole day, is what some people call a brain dump. First thing in the morning, before I check my phone, I take about 5 minutes and I just write down everything that's on my mind. Tasks, worries, ideas, random things I need to remember. Just get it all out of your head and onto paper.
Oh, I do something similar. I didn't know it had a name, but yes, that act of clearing your mental space, your head space, at the start of the day makes such a difference. It's like emptying a very cluttered drawer so you can actually find what you need.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the second habit I'd strongly recommend is time blocking. This is where instead of just having a to-do list, you actually assign specific blocks of time in your day to specific tasks.
Right. So instead of writing work on report on your list, you write work on report from 9 to 11 a.m. You give it a real slot, a fixed place in your schedule.
Exactly. And the key insight is that a task expands to fill the time you give it. This is called Parkinson's law. If you say, I'll write this article whenever I get around to it, it'll take all day. But if you say, I have 90 minutes for this, you'll very likely finish it in 90 minutes.
That's fascinating and honestly a little scary, because it means we've all probably wasted enormous amounts of time by not giving ourselves clear boundaries around tasks.
Oh, definitely. And it also means that sometimes, and this is counterintuitive, meaning it goes against what you'd expect, giving yourself less time can actually make you more focused and efficient.
Now, I want to gently push back on something here, Jake, because I feel like for some people, and I include myself in this sometimes, very rigid scheduling can actually feel suffocating. Like if your day is planned down to the minute and then something unexpected comes up, the whole thing falls apart and you feel even more stressed.
That's a really fair point, and I think the answer is building in buffer time. Buffer time is basically breathing room, gaps in your schedule that aren't assigned to anything specific, so that when life happens, you have space to absorb it without everything collapsing.
Okay, yes, that makes sense. So it's not about having every minute of your day mapped out. It's about being intentional with your time while also leaving room for flexibility.
Exactly. Think of it like a road trip. You have a destination and a rough route planned, but you also know that traffic might happen. You might take a detour. Maybe you stop for a great roadside lunch. The plan is a guide, not a prison.
I love that. The plan is a guide, not a prison. That might be the most quotable thing you've said today.
I try.
Okay, let's talk about something that I know trips a lot of people up. And trips up means causes problems or mistakes. And that's procrastination. Because you can know all the frameworks and time-blocking techniques in the world, but if you're still putting things off, none of it works.
Oh, procrastination, the nemesis of productivity, the enemy. And I think what a lot of people don't realize is that procrastination is almost never about laziness. It's usually about emotion.
Say more about that, because I think that's a perspective a lot of people haven't considered.
So research in psychology, and I find this genuinely interesting, shows that we procrastinate most on tasks that make us feel something uncomfortable. Fear of failure, fear of being judged, feeling overwhelmed, not knowing where to start. The task itself might be totally doable, but the emotional weight around it makes us avoid it.
So we're not avoiding the task, we're avoiding the feeling associated with the task.
Right, and this is why the common advice of just do it often doesn't work, because the problem isn't motivation or willpower, it's that you need to address the underlying discomfort first.
And how do you do that practically? Because someone listening might be thinking, okay, that's interesting, but what do I actually do?
One technique that I've found incredibly useful is called the 2-minute rule. And it's simple. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it right now. Don't add it to your list, don't think about it, just do it. This clears a lot of small things off your mental plate and stops them from piling up.
That's such a low-effort, high-return habit. Low effort, big results. And for the bigger tasks that you're putting off?
For those, I like to use what I call shrinking the task. So if I'm avoiding something because it feels huge and intimidating, I break it down into the smallest possible first step. Not write the whole report. Just open the document and write one sentence. That's it.
And once you've started, the resistance usually drops?
Almost always. There's actually a psychological principle behind this. Once you begin a task, your brain wants to finish it. It's called the Zeigarnik effect. So the hardest part is always getting started.
That's brilliant. And it's such a relief to hear, honestly, because I think a lot of us beat ourselves up, meaning we're very self-critical, when we procrastinate. But understanding the psychology behind it is genuinely liberating.
It really is. And I think self-compassion is actually a part of time management that doesn't get talked about enough. If you mess up your schedule one day or you waste a whole afternoon, being harsh on yourself doesn't help. You just dust yourself off, meaning you recover and move on, and you start fresh.
Absolutely. Progress over perfection. Okay, I want to shift gears slightly and talk about one of the biggest time management challenges of modern life, which is digital distraction. Because we're all carrying these incredibly powerful distraction devices in our pockets at all times.
That's exactly what smartphones are, really, if we're being honest. Little distraction machines.
So how do you handle that? Because I know it's something I genuinely struggle with. I pick up my phone to check one thing, and 20 minutes later, I'm looking at videos of dogs doing tricks.
We've all been there. So I think the most effective approach is to change your environment rather than rely on willpower. Because willpower runs out. It's a limited resource. But if your phone is in another room, you don't have to resist the temptation. It's just not there.
That's the idea of reducing friction, right? Making the bad habit harder to do and the good habit easier.
Exactly. So practically, I try to keep my phone out of my workspace when I need to focus. I turn off non-essential notifications. Basically, anything that's not urgent doesn't get to interrupt my flow. And I use app timers to limit how long I spend on social media each day.
Do the app timers actually work for you? Because I've tried them and I find it's very easy to just tap ignore and keep going.
Okay, fair point. The timers work better when you pair them with a reason. Like, I tell myself, and this sounds a bit silly, but I say, I get 30 minutes of social media today, and I'm going to enjoy it. But after that, I'm done. Treating it like a conscious choice rather than a guilty indulgence makes a big difference.
I love that reframe. A reframe is when you change the way you interpret or think about something. So instead of fighting against social media, you're making peace with it, but on your own terms.
Exactly. It's about being intentional, which is really the core idea behind all of time management. Not doing things on autopilot, but making active decisions about how you spend your time.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of territory today. Let's talk about something that comes up a lot when people try to improve their time management, which is the myth of multitasking. Because there are people who genuinely believe they're good at doing multiple things at once.
Oh, this is one of my favorite myths to bust, to debunk, to prove wrong. Because the research on this is very clear. Human beings are not good at multitasking. What we're actually doing when we think we're multitasking is rapidly switching between tasks, and every time we switch, there's a cost.
A mental cost?
Yes, it's called a switching cost. Your brain takes time to refocus each time you shift to a new task, and those seconds add up to significant lost time and reduced quality of work. Studies have shown that people who multitask actually perform worse on every individual task than people who do one thing at a time.
And yet multitasking is still presented as this desirable skill, especially in job descriptions. Must be able to multitask.
Right, which is slightly terrifying when you think about it. The ideal would be to hire people who can focus deeply on one thing at a time, not people who are constantly splitting their attention.
So, what's your advice for people who are in environments where multitasking feels unavoidable, like open plan offices, constant emails, colleagues who drop by?
That's a real challenge, and I think the honest answer is that you need to advocate for your focus time, meaning you need to speak up and protect it. That might mean blocking time in your calendar and marking yourself as unavailable. It might mean wearing headphones as a signal that you're in deep work mode, or having a clear conversation with your team about focus hours.
And for people who work from home, which is a lot of people these days, the distractions are different but equally real. Family, household tasks, the couch being very nearby.
The couch is a serious threat to productivity, yes. I think for working from home, having a dedicated workspace is huge, even if it's just a specific corner of a room, and having clear start and end times for your workday, because without the structure of an office, the day can just blur into everything else.
That's such an important point. Boundaries. And not just physical boundaries, but time boundaries. Knowing when you're working and when you're not.
Because one trap that a lot of remote workers fall into is actually overworking, working too much. Because when your home is your office, it's hard to switch off.
And ironically, overworking doesn't make you more productive. It usually leads to burnout, which means total exhaustion, physical and mental. And then you're not productive at all.
Right. Rest is actually part of time management. Taking proper breaks, getting enough sleep, having weekends that actually feel like weekends. All of that feeds into your capacity to do good work. You can't pour from an empty cup, as they say.
Oh, I love that expression. You can't pour from an empty cup. Meaning if you're depleted, you have nothing left to give, either to your work or to the people around you.
And there's real science behind this too. The brain needs downtime to consolidate information, to be creative, to solve problems. Some of our best ideas come when we step away from work, not when we grind harder.
Okay, I want to ask you something a bit more personal before we wrap up. What is the single biggest time management mistake you've made, and what did you learn from it?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think my biggest mistake was saying yes to everything. I used to have this fear of missing out, this FOMO, and I'd agree to every project, every meeting, every social event, every favor, because I didn't want to disappoint anyone or miss an opportunity.
And what happened?
I spread myself so thin, meaning I had so many commitments that I couldn't do any of them well, that I started doing everything at a mediocre level. Mediocre means just okay, not bad, but not good either. And that was actually worse than doing fewer things really well.
So what shifted?
I had to learn the power of no. And I know that sounds simple, but it's genuinely hard, especially if you're a people pleaser. But I started to think of every yes as a commitment of my time and energy. And I asked myself, do I have enough of both to actually honor this commitment? If the answer was no, I started saying no.
And did that change your relationships, your stress levels?
Dramatically. And something interesting happened. People actually respected me more, not less, when I started being clearer about my limits. Because when I did say yes, they knew I meant it and I'd deliver.
That's such a valuable lesson. And I think it also connects to this idea of knowing your priorities. Because when you know what matters most to you, it becomes easier to say no to things that don't align with that.
Absolutely. And I think that's maybe the deepest level of time management. Not just tools and techniques, but a real clarity about your values and what you want your life to look like. Because ultimately, how you spend your time is how you spend your life.
That's beautifully put. How you spend your time is how you spend your life. Okay, let's do a quick recap of the key ideas we've covered today, because we've talked about a lot.
Sure. So first, write things down. Don't rely on your memory. Use a planner, an app, whatever works for you, but get your tasks out of your head and into a system.
Second, prioritize intentionally. The Eisenhower Matrix is a great tool for this. Separate what's truly important from what just feels urgent.
Third, use time blocking. Give your tasks a specific slot in your day. And remember Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time available. So set limits.
Fourth, understand procrastination. It's usually emotional, not laziness. Use the 2-minute rule for small tasks and shrink big tasks to the smallest possible first step.
Fifth, manage your digital environment. Reduce temptations by changing your surroundings, not just relying on willpower. Be intentional about when and how you use your devices.
Sixth, stop multitasking. Single tasking, focusing on one thing at a time, is genuinely more effective. Protect your focus.
And seventh, rest and say no. Rest isn't laziness, it's essential. And protecting your time means being selective about what you commit to.
That is a fantastic list. Jake, this has been such a genuinely useful conversation. I feel like I need to go reorganize my whole life now.
Same. And I'm the one who almost showed up late today, so clearly I still have work to do.
We all do. That's the thing. Time management isn't something you perfect. It's something you keep practicing and adjusting as your life changes. And I think that's actually quite reassuring.
Totally. It's a journey, not a destination. Cheesy, but true.
Cheesy, but absolutely true. All right, everyone, that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. And given what we've talked about today, we really do appreciate that. We know your time is valuable.
It really is. Take care of it.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with someone who you think could use a little help in this area. And honestly, that's most of us. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, take care of yourselves, manage your time well, and we'll talk soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.